Hey guys, this is Coach Michael Burt, the Super Coach. I believe everybody needs a coach in life, and you're listening to Success is a Choice podcast.
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to today's episode of Success is a Choice podcast. Today we're really excited to have a guest with us by the name of Chad Allen. Chad is the editorial director for Bechler Books. He's also the creator of the Book Proposal Academy and Book Camp. He is a writing and book coach, and he's an all-around stand-up guy. So from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Chad R. Allen. Welcome to the show today, Chad.
Thanks, Jamie. Great to be here.
Yeah, now you are all about books. You are the main guy that I know when it comes to books. I was going through looking at writing a book, and I read a lot of your stuff on your blog ahead of time, and you have lots of good nuggets. So tell us a little bit about your background, if you would.
Sure. Well, I graduated with an English major, and like I'm sure many English majors do, I was fearful about my future. So, so I actually, I put that English degree to work right away working for a manufacturing company. And I was an office manager, and it was good real-life experience. But eventually ended up working with Douglas Gresham, who's the stepson of the late C.S. Lewis. Some of your listeners might know of C.S. Lewis. He wrote The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Mere Christianity, and many other books. And I ended up working with his stepson, Doug Gresham, who was the general consultant to C.S. Lewis PTE Limited, which was the company that owns all the rights to C.S. Lewis's work. So that was my first exposure to publishing. And I can remember Doug asking my opinions about various, C.S. Lewis related projects that came across his desk. And I was immediately just transfixed by the reality that there were people behind the scenes who got to influence what that final book ended up looking like. That was really interesting to me and intrigued me and piqued my interest. And I guess it's been that interest that has led me ever since. So, but I've been editorial director for Bechler Books, a mid-sized book publisher in Grand Rapids, Michigan, faith-based publisher. We're a Christian book publisher, and I've been at Bechler for going on 16 years now, and I've been in publishing for going on 20 years.
That's awesome. And in addition to your job as the editorial director there at Bechler Books, you've also created the Book Proposal Academy, and you do a lot of coaching for people who want to write a book. And I heard it once said that everybody has a book inside of them. What is this about? What do you do in your coaching services? What do you do to help people get that book from inside of them out to somebody that might actually read it?
Yeah, so about 6 years ago, I just started feeling this tug to start trying to help more and more people who have an interest in writing and creating. And so I'm passionate about helping writers get their books into the world. So, and you get these questions over and over again, certain questions over and over again. And how do I develop a book concept? Can I use my blog content in my book? And you get these questions enough times and you start to think, well, gee, maybe I should write this down so I don't have to, keep repeating it over and over again. So that's what I tried to do with my blog. And then one time do you know Dale Callahan by chance?
I don't, no.
Okay, Dale's a friend of our mutual friend, Michael Nichols. And Dale asked me a while ago, he said, if you could help me write a book proposal, that would be incredible. And I thought, well, I've probably reviewed dozens of book proposals. That's probably not an exaggeration at this point. And so I thought, what if I created a course that helped people write their nonfiction book proposals? So from that came Book Proposal Academy. And then I thought, building a platform and writing a manuscript, these are not short-term projects. They're long-term projects. So what if I created a service whereby for a low, monthly fee, folks could join a community where they could get ongoing support, accountability, and training for platform building and writing and navigating the publishing landscape. And from that came Book Camp. So those are two things that I've created that seem to be helping people, and I'm just honored to get to play a small part in these writers' lives.
Well, that's awesome, because a lot of people don't have any clue where to start. Or even if you are a veteran writer or a blogger, or you think you know where to start, you don't know the ins and outs. And for someone that's been in this business for as long as you have some nuggets that you can offer people. So it's a great thing that you can offer them. What would be some advice for people? So let's say I want to write a book. I got this idea. I think people might actually want to read it. What would be your advice, other than obviously to go online and find your book academy or book camp, book proposal academy?
No.
But what would be some general advice that you would give somebody?
Yeah, I think, Frederick Buechner said the place he calls you to is the place where your deep gladness meets the world's deep hunger, or something to that effect. This idea that the place we're called is where our deep passion, our deep gladness intersects with the world's deep hunger, the world's deep need. And so you need a sense of both of those. What are you feeling called to write? That's one thing. And then how does that square with the need that real people really have? And what I find as I work with writers is that there can be some amount of confusion on both of those things. People generally have, a basic idea. They often have sort of scattered thoughts in their heads about the book they want to write, but they don't really know how to take those scattered thoughts and create, really craft a book concept, an actual title and subtitle, or at least a working title and subtitle from those ideas. So I encourage people, and folks can grab a little infographic I created for free on my blog, chadrallen.com. And it's an infographic that helps you think about the need that your book is addressing, and then helps you, once you have that firmly in mind, helps you brainstorm titles and subtitles that would suit a book that addresses that need. So that's the first step, to get clear on the need. And then the second is to brainstorm a working title and subtitle, which is just a way of making your book concept concrete. When we talk about concept, that can be a very abstract term that's sort of hard to get your arms around. Well, titles are concept labels. So when you play with titles, you're playing with concepts, and often that's a great way to take those first steps forward on a book project.
So, Chad, with your book proposal academy and your book camp, I would imagine that the things that you're teaching in that and the principles would really guide somebody and give them clarity whether or not they were going through the traditional publishing, which you are an expert at, or if they were going through the self-publishing, which seems to be popular nowadays, and not everybody can go through your traditional publishers. So I would imagine this would give them clarity. Would that be correct?
Yeah, what I'm trying to keep people from is writing books for which there's not much of a market. So I find myself regularly helping writers get clear on the need that their book is addressing. If you don't have a clear sense of that, you're going to end up with a confused book, or just a book that doesn't have much of a market. And that applies to self-publishing or traditional publishing. So that's where I find, especially when writers are getting started with their book projects, that tends to be where they struggle. It definitely applies either way.
Yeah, and I would think just the process of writing a proposal would help you get your thoughts down for what direction you want the book, and to make sure that, the book's title is good, the subtitle is good. And even, if you end up having to self-publish it, you're going to need to market it. You're going to need to be able to make a little summary in just a few sentences. So I would imagine that proposal can help you out regardless.
Yeah, I think writing a book proposal is a great way for anybody to get started on a project, because it's in writing a book proposal that you discover and articulate so many different features of your book, including your vision for the book, the structure of the book, your bio and why you're a credible source for the book, your marketing plan, which you're going to need regardless of whether you're publishing traditionally or self-publishing. And then, of course, the writing sample, which is the beginning of the manuscript itself. So I think writing a book proposal is a great way to get started.
And not everybody is going to be able to get their book published in a traditional manner. And self-publishing is probably a good plan B for some people, I would imagine, even though I'm not sure you as a traditional publisher, are a fan of self-publishing. I don't know that, but I would imagine that in some respects it gives people another option if they're not able to get traditionally published.
I'm a huge fan of self-publishing. I just think it's remarkable that in this day and age, the opportunities we have now just didn't exist 10 years ago. And so I regularly encourage writers to go after traditional publishing initially, because there are some good things that come from traditional publishing, including wider distribution, including a marketing budget, a publicist, professional editorial services, and the list goes on. Those are value-added services that are worth taking advantage of if you can. If it doesn't work out in, say, 3 to 6 months, then pivot and go the self-publishing route. Use your self-published book as a way of building your platform. And by platform, I just mean any means you have for bringing exposure to your book, any means you have for promoting your book. Use your self-published book as a tool for building your platform so that you're in a better position to pursue traditional publishing the second time around.
Excellent. Now, you just mentioned platform, and a lot of our listeners are successful business people. Maybe they're successful realtors or even successful basketball or football coaches or successful bankers, whatever it is. And they have a book inside them. They want to write a book at some point about their successes, or they want to write a book about what they know. But you mentioned the platform. What can they be doing right now to increase their platform so that when that book does come out, they're able to market it and get it out to the people so they can add value to people?
Well, they should be listening to you, for one thing, Jamie. I think your podcast, it can be an important part of helping people be successful and to successfully build their platform. They can start blogging. And if that seems daunting, I'll just point to something Seth Godin said. He said, people talk about writer's block all the time, but they don't ever talk about talker's block. If you can talk about something, and we're talking about things all the time, then you can write about it. So start serving an audience by blogging, or by starting your own podcast. Podcasts, as you know, are growing. And it's not a medium that's going to go away anytime soon. So you can build a platform a lot of ways. Blogging, podcasting, speaking are 3 big ones that come to mind. And I've worked with writers who have done all of those, and each one can be successful. And of course, some people do more than one.
And we hear about, obviously social media is huge right now, and it's probably not going away, but we also hear about email lists. And it seems like email is a thing of the past with social media, but we still hear a lot about email lists. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think a question we could ask ourselves is, will we check our email at least one time today? And I think most of us would say yes. And so I don't think email is going away anytime soon. It may go away at some point in the future, but it is just a fairly intimate form of communication. If I give you access to my inbox, that's special access. And if you have that access and then you use it to point me to something that you think would help me, you have a bigger chance of getting my attention than somebody who doesn't have that access, for sure. So I think of it as the core of a platform these days. And It's certainly the number one metric that I look for when I'm reviewing a book proposal, is how big is that email list, how engaged is it, and so I just think social media is not unimportant. Don't get me wrong. I just think email is a lot more important.
I hope that you are enjoying this interview with Chad Allen. One of the more popular books that Chad has worked on is Ernie Johnson's Unscripted. Our friends at Audible are offering our listeners a free audiobook download of Ernie Johnson's book. Just go to audibletrial.com/Success is a Choice podcast to get this free download, as well as a free trial membership. If you already have bought the hard copy of this book, then you can probably still find another book that interests you from their library of more than 180,000 books. That special deal, once again, can be found at audibletrial.com/Success is a Choice podcast. And now, back to our interview with Chad Allen. Well, somebody that definitely has a huge platform is Ernie Johnson, who's on TNT and with the basketball during the year. And he just came out with a book called Unscripted, and Baker Books was the publisher of that. You know, going through that process, were there some things that stood out about the process of writing a book for somebody that's on TV nearly every night, or that has a big platform like that, has a great message? Were there some things that stood out about that process, or Ernie Johnson himself, that you'd love to relate?
Yeah, I mean, Ernie's in a special category because he may have an email list, but he doesn't really need one because he has a national television program and a massive network that is supporting him. So, you know, that's another example, because I talked about writing, I talked about writing, blogging, I talked about podcasting and speaking. I guess you could say Ernie's a speaker, but really he's a sportscaster, and he has a massive audience because of that. So he would be another example of how you can do this. But of course, he's an exception. He's an exception in so many ways. He wrote a terrific book that helped people think about what's most important in life, and it's a great book on savoring those extraordinary or those ordinary moments that make life extraordinary, and that's kind of the theme of his memoir. And it's obviously struck a nerve. That book hit the New York Times list, and so many people are interested, are fans of him and are interested in the backstory of his life, and that's really what he reveals in his book. Well,
with Ernie Johnson, he's obviously been hugely successful, and he's a man of character, has been successful in a lot of ways. What are some other people or common traits that you've seen through your years of book publishing? You've gotten to know different successful people. You've gotten to work with them as they wrote some of their keys and tips for success. So what are some of the traits that you see that are common among successful people?
I would say stick-to-itiveness, a willingness to persevere, because the whole business of writing a manuscript and building a platform, these are long work projects. It's not something that you just wake up one morning and you're done by 5. These are going to take weeks and months and years. And so the folks that I've seen be successful have been people who've put in the work day in and day out, and who failed and got back up and kept on keeping on. So perseverance, a level of drive, a level of knowing what's most important and keeping that kind of on center stage, and just not giving up. You don't really fail until you give up. As long as you keep going, you're bound to succeed in one way or another. So that would be that's what I would point to.
That's great. Now, you've had 20 years in the book business, essentially. What are some of the things that stand out of your career? What are some highlights that you look back on and you're like, man, I'm really proud of this accomplishment, or proud of this or that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I have to just point to all the different books I've had the honor and privilege to work on, including Ernie Johnson's. I just think about, I still get, books back from the printer, and every time I get one, I just take a second and look at it and hold it, smell it. And, it's not every business where you get to hold the product of your work. And I'm blessed to be in an industry where that's the case. And to see the Amazon reviews and to see the sales reports and to just know that all of it represents impact that these books are having on people's lives and in the world. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way to spend a career is making books and seeing them go out into the world. I've always wanted to have a New York Times bestseller. I've had worked on many bestsellers, but the New York Times list for whatever reason has been kind of elusive. But I did hit it with Ernie Johnson. So that was a nice little feather in the cap that belongs way more to Ernie than to me. So it's nice to have accomplished that, but I'm far more grateful for the collective impact of all the books that I've been blessed to work on.
That's great, Chad, because as you talked about, Baker Books is a faith-based publishing company and puts out a lot of books. It just adds value and inspires so many people. And Ernie Johnson's book is one of the more memorable books, more recent books, but so many other books have come out. What have been some of the challenges that you've faced in the book business for the last 20 years and some of the ways you've overcome those? And as you talk about it, persevere or stick-to-itness, what are some things that you've had to overcome, challenges you've faced?
Yeah, that's a great question. One that comes to mind is, as a company, publishing company, we've had certain objectives that we wanted to hit. And we've made what we thought were strategic investments to hit those objectives. And any good company, will take a step back and evaluate the return on those investments. And I would say, one of the obstacles or one of the things that we've had to overcome is sometimes you take a chance and the investment doesn't pay off as well as you would have liked. And you realize, okay, this was not the best investment we could have made. And I still to this day struggle with beating myself up over those things because I've been one of the main decision makers for some of those investments. But they haven't been fatal, and we've learned so much from them. So that's how, to the extent I'm overcoming those things, it's by learning from them and by getting smarter and getting better at this business. So I mean, as long as the mistake you make isn't fatal, doesn't somehow put your company into bankruptcy or something awful like that, then you learn from it. And I guess even if your company did go belly up, you learn from it and you keep on moving. That's how I've been able to overcome those shortcomings.
Yeah, John Maxwell wrote a book years ago that says sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
Yeah, so, that's terrific. Yeah, absolutely.
He also wrote one that said failing forward, and a lot of times it's your perspective on things. And if you're looking at it as a failure, you really don't fail until you quit. You really don't fail until you stop learning from those setbacks. Great answer, Chad. I'd love to finish up with a couple rapid fire questions. Obviously, you're a book guy. What is a book or a podcast that you would definitely recommend to our audience that maybe you're reading right now?
I'm reading, it's on my desk right here, I'm reading Deep Work by Cal Newport. The subtitle is Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. Deep Work by Cal Newport. He makes an argument that work that is the result of deep and long concentration is becoming more and more valuable in the world where our concentration is constantly fractured and we're constantly distracted and doing little bits of work here and there. In that context, deep work becomes that much more valuable, and he tries to lay out a plan for helping you get there. So it's a great book.
Great. Who would you recommend that I interview as a guest on this podcast that might add value to our audience?
Michael Hyatt comes to mind.
He's big time. Who would you like to meet or get to know that you don't already know?
Seth Godin.
Great one. What is a favorite quote or mantra that you have?
done is better than perfect.
What is a productivity tool, app, resource, or software that you would have a hard time doing without?
Can I give you two?
Absolutely.
WordPress and Evernote.
WordPress and Evernote, yes. If you were to be on any reality show, which one would it be?
The Amazing Race. This looks like a lot of fun.
Who would be your partner?
Wow.
Could you have your wife as your partner on that?
Absolutely. She'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. That'd be great. I don't know if we'd survive, but it would be fun.
Well, that's the true test of marriage. If you could have your spouse on The Amazing Race with you, I think.
Oh yeah, it'd be a great experiment.
Well, other than your current job, which obviously is a dream job, what would you do if you could do anything other than what you're currently doing?
Travel writer, getting to go places and write about it.
Nice. Well, Chad, I appreciate your insights today. They were very valuable. I appreciate your time. And we will definitely be putting your links of where people can contact you, connect with you. ChadRAllen.com is the website, and we'll be putting those links in the show notes. Chad, I appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us today. If you have ever thought about writing a book, then you should check out Chad's website at ChadRAllen.com. That's www.ChadRAllen.com. And whether you want to go the traditional publishing route or self-publish your book, Chad's insights will be valuable to you. Thanks for listening, and please take just a quick second to hit that little subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Thanks again, and until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?